So here's an app where we can specify the weight in pounds and the duration of an activity, and it is gonna pull up that info, and then we get to select an activity actually. So let's say I choose running at 8 miles per hour. So at that point, this app is gonna send all these info to this website, get the data back from the website, look into that data, and figure out how much calorie was burned. So this is basically the same thing as putting in this values over here and getting the answer from this website. So this app basically connects to this website and gets the value. So as you can see, you got the same value as in the app as you see over here. Now in order to create this, what I first did was I created a label, said enter the weight in pounds. I added a text box. By default it doesn't have any hints or any text. I added a second label for the duration of the activity. I added a second text box, which again doesn't have any hint or text. Then I added a list picker, and I'm going to set all the options for the list picker in my blocks editor. I added a label which is there under this list picker, and I changed the font size to 24. I changed the text color to red, and then I added a web component. One thing I did do for these two text boxes is I made sure they're numbers only, because we are going to only enter numbers over there. Then what I did was, when I went to my blocks editor, I first created these two lists, and over here I'm only creating a sample app, so I just chose a subset of activities from that website, not all those activities. So what I did was I went to this website, I looked at several activities. So for example, I put in some weights and times, it doesn't matter, you can put in whatever you want, and then I selected an activity, let's say jogging. So jogging 5 miles per hour, and then I hit submit. And then what I did was I looked into this URL corresponding to that web query, and I copied this last part from this ampersand all the way to the end of the URL. So I copied this last part, and then I went to the blocks editor, and I created, in the first list, I created the first item. I just typed in jogging 5 miles per hour, and in the second list I added another text block, this block over here, and then I just pasted that. So whatever I copied from here in this URL, the last part, whatever I copied, this last ampersand activity onwards, that's what I pasted over here. So I did that for jogging 6 miles per hour, running, all the 3 running options. So this first list has the name of the activities, and the second list has the last part of the URL corresponding to that activity. Now, when my screen is so that's what I did as far as these two lists are concerned. Now, when my screen is starting up, I'm putting some initial values for my weight and duration for the activity. So in general, 150 is a default weight that I'm putting in. You can put in something else, and 30 minutes is the default time for the activity that I'm putting in, and you can again put in some other things. So now in the list picker, using this list picker before picking, that list picker, I want the user to click on that and then select one of the activities. So what I'm doing is, right when the user clicks on that list picker, I'm looking at all these activities from my exercises lists, and that's what I'm using to populate that list picker. So my list picker, whenever I click on that list picker button, that will show up all the 5 activities from this list. Now when I select an activity, so in other words, when I click on, let's say, jogging, At that point, what I'm doing is I'm creating the proper URL based on that activity. So let's say I selected the third option from my list picker, which will be running 8 miles per hour. So at that point, what I'm doing is I am basically trying to create this whole URL corresponding to that running 8 miles per hour activity. So what I'm doing is I am taking the first part of that URL, then I'm grabbing the weight from my weight text box. So at this point I have this first part of the URL followed by the weight, then I'm again grabbing the second part of the URL, I'm again grabbing the duration from my time text box, and then what I'm doing is I'm getting the corresponding item from this URL list. So since I selected running 8 miles per hour from my exercise list, that was my third element. So now I'm going to this list, picking the corresponding third element from this one, adding that as the last part of my URL, sending a web.get. So now when I receive the text from my website, the text that I'm gonna get is gonna look something like this. So let's look at the actual text that we are going to receive from my website. So notice this is a large chunk of HTML text that I'm getting from that website. So I looked into this text and I saw that there is the calories that you burned hidden somewhere in that text, and I'll try to look that up somewhere. So in this text that we are going to get from this website, there's going to be this line somewhere. You space burn space, then this HTML tag, then this calorie value, then this NH, the corresponding tag. So we want to extract just this value from this whole text that we received from that website. And here is how we can do that. So we are going to look for that U space burn space within angular bracket B. So we are going to look for this string and we are going to split our entire data that we received from that website based on that. So now our data will have two parts. The first part, which is before this string, and then the second part, which is right after this string. So we don't need that first part at all. So we are interested only in this part. So we are gonna take the second half of that split. We are again gonna split that at this character and take the first half, which will give us the exact calorie value. So that's how we can select some weight, select some time, select an activity, and that'll give us the calories spent on that. So now, of course, when you guys are going to extend this, you'll have to add a whole bunch of other activities in alphabetical order, the corresponding partial URL strings for each of those activities, and then go from there. And I checked a little bit. This website is actually pulling all their data from this website, nutribase.com, and Nutribase actually is a paid software, so they have some sample data available, and if you guys are interested, you can look into that as well.